Cory, is this co-main event stuff boring to you now? I mean, after you've been the big dog, is it tough to settle back down the card a little bit?
Yeah. Is this what we do now? Guys get big wins, and now it's co-mains. No, it's good, man. Whatever. Frankie's a good opponent, and I'm excited about that.
Nice. Yeah. That last performance, so impressive. I mean, I guess first of all, just how big was that for you? Because I know you were frustrated what happened the time before. I mean, was that a big moment for you to go like, yeah, I'm still this good?
Yeah. It was it was kind of an FU, like kind of to that sad person after that last fight, myself, that FU to myself, where it's like, you got it, you can figure it out, and that's what I did.
Was there a key to it? I mean, not that you haven't had great performances before, but I mean, that was just like next level stuff. Was there something that you can point to as like, yep, this is what clicked?
Yeah, I practiced time and time again, getting into a intense space in my head, where I could actually perform in a fist fight like really high level. I started, just really, really taking care of this thing. So every sparring session before, it was no matter what, like I didn't care. I didn't give myself any excuse, whether I was sick, tired, beat up from the week or whatever. I made myself get to a point where it didn't matter, and I practiced that over and over and over again. That way, in the future, when I am feeling flat going into a fight, it doesn't happen again.
Nice. You talk about the matchup with Frankie, and we kind of joke, co-main event. But does this feel like a big fight? I mean, I think everybody's kind of looking at it as a #1 contender fight. He's certainly a legend of the sport. I mean, does this feel like a big moment for you?
Yeah, it's a big one. There's big implications behind it. The guy's a Hall of Famer. He has a ton of experience. I'm excited to face someone that's been doing so well for so long. And yeah, man, it feels like a big fight.
Yeah, like I said, it seems like a #1 contender fight. Is there any party that's cheering for Aljamain Sterling a little bit? I mean, is that like, would that be even sweeter to get a title fight and for it to be against Aljamain Sterling, or do you feel that might be tough to get that fight?
I don't have many opinions about that kind of stuff. I do want to fight Aljamain again, but I also equally want to fight Jan too. So, whoever wins that one doesn't matter to me. I would love to fight either one of them. But yeah, getting the one back against Aljamain would be, it would really, I think, settle some things in my mind too.
Yeah. When we think about Frankie, we think about a guy that's got endurance, that's got pace. Does the strategy change at all for the fact that this is a 3-round fight? Does your pacing or how you approach the fight change?
Not really. I don't think in this sport you necessarily always get to control the pace of the fight, so you need to be ready for whatever that person wants to do that night. It could get real. It could get real frantic, and you need to be ready for that. And I think that goes for 3 rounds and it goes for 5 rounds. I was prepping for 5 rounds all the way up until about 2 weeks ago, just because all of this crazy stuff that's going on. I wanted to make sure that if they were like, hey, can you do 5 rounds, I could do 5 rounds, and so I'm ready for 3. God forbid something happens to Alistair or Volkov, but 5 also. Don't tell Alistair.
If they came to you like tomorrow and they're like, hey, man, we got to bump this up to 5 rounds, you're in?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I trained for. They were kind of saying, too, that they wanted to move some stuff around because they wanted to make us a main event. They just, they didn't have just didn't fit into whatever. So I had that in the back of my mind for the entire 10 weeks.
Nice. Last thing for me, I mean, obviously when you play this thing out in your head, you're capable of doing spectacular things. At the same time, Frankie's been in some like drawn-out wars over his career, right? So what type of fight do you think we see on Saturday?
Yeah. I try not to be, too negative, but also definitely not too positive either. I think no matter how good you are, you walk into a fight and you think you're going to win. That's the #1 way to lose, I think. So I'm not being super positive in my head about it. I'm not being super negative either. I'm taking it for what it is, and I trust my skills against Frankie. But I also know that Frankie's been in some wars. He's been through about everything that you can go through in this sport, and he's going to come ready to fight. I know he wants it probably just as bad as I want it, and that's to be taken really serious.
Not to dwell on hypotheticals, but they're fun to talk about.
Yeah, I win all hypotheticals too. So
if the main event did fall out, I mean, when you sign to be a co-main event, is there talks with the UFC about like, well, you got to be prepared for a possibility of a 5-round fight?
Kind of like I said, they they wanted us to be a main event, and they were maybe thinking of like if something fell out earlier, moving some main events around, and then me and Frankie popping into the main event. So that was my understanding, and I didn't want to get caught with my guard down. So I kept ready the whole time for 5 rounds.
So you've been training as a...
Yeah. Up until 2 weeks ago, only because the pace of a 3-round fight is a little bit different than a 5-round fight. So just making sure that, I'm making the pace way up here for a 3-round fight, because it's a little bit different.
Are there disadvantages for doing training in a way, a hybrid train for both?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to think about those. Yeah.
Just a couple. I want to touch back upon when you said when you came in and it was about the mindset. Are you working with a mental coach talking about the mentality, or is it just something that you figured out that you're like, I really need to focus on this? And is that something that you feel like you've maybe have lacked in previous fights?
So I started using a sports psych about 5 years ago, I think after my first loss, 4 or 5 years ago. Because, I'm not an arrogant guy, but I know where I stack up technically against everyone, and I know that technically I beat everyone. I've been in the gym with some really big names, and I've done really well with some really big names, and but that ain't fighting. Fighting is doing it on the night that you're supposed to do it on, getting hurt and still fighting past that. There's a lot of things that go into fighting past technicality, and I just needed to work on that. It's like the thing that I think, not that I was lacking, I think everyone kind of lacks it in their own way, but if you don't work on it, it doesn't get better. Like when I walked into the Aljamain Sterling fight, I didn't really recognize what was happening inside of me because I had never practiced that before. And then I practiced it, and then I was able to bring it out in Marais. That's how things work. You practice things, and then you get better at them. It's not magic.
And you kind of touched upon it right there. Is this something that you feel that maybe young fighters or fighters coming up or even veterans, do you think the mental focus part of it is one of the things that maybe gets set aside from all the physical stuff? You guys are going in drilling, you're working striking, you're working the grappling. But do you feel like the whole mental side of the game is something that maybe gets an afterthought that maybe should be more on the forethought?
Yeah. There's mental road work too. It's part of my routine now, where I sit down, I do my visualizations, I do my journaling, I write down what I'm working on for that week, I write down at the end of the week what I did well, what I didn't do well, what I need to work on for the next week. That's all mental road work, and I think it does get overlooked a little bit, but I think, I hear all the time, oh, I'm the hardest worker in the room, this, that. It's like, maybe you are, but this is a big world and there's a lot of people in the UFC, and everyone's working hard. Everyone's getting good coaching. So what are you doing to separate yourself? And for me, it's putting in that mental road work. And yeah, I don't think a lot of people do it because it's challenging and it takes a lot of awareness to kind of figure out that you need that.
And I'm sure part of the last question, a lot of that visualization, you're setting goals for yourself for the future. So at the end of 2021, what do you visualize for yourself and where do you see yourself?
Yeah. So before this week it's more of, focusing on Saturday, that's it. But so to get to outside of that realm is a little bit, different for me to think about. But when I'm coming up through these weeks, yeah, that's on my mind. I want to win the belt in the summertime, and then I want to defend it at the end of the year. That's my goal for this year.
Thank you very much.